Godmorgen alle sammen. Mit navn det er Marlene Horsbøl, og jeg er direktør i Danske KonferenceCentres, og vi er jo arrangører af det her webinar. Vi er et bookingsted. Vi booker møder normalt for mange af jer. Vi laver også arrangementer som det her. Det er relativt nyt for os at lave webinarer. Men det er jo en spændende ny mulighed, som jo er så mange af jer har taget rigtig godt imod, for der er 90 tilmeldte i dag, så det er utroligt positivt for os. Vi er en forening, ejet af vores partner, altså vores mødesteder. Vi har 104. Vi er en kæde, en fri kæde, ligesom Commonwealth og Scandic er en kæde. Vi er medlem af IACC, som er dem, der i dag præsenterer deres rapport omkring fremtidens mødemarked. Og IACC står for International Association of KonferenceCentres og er en global forening, lidt ligesom os, for mødesteder. De deler rigtig meget viden og bringer det ud, og jeg laver ikke så meget mødebooking. Omkring mødet i dag vil jeg sige, at vi er så mange, at vi har valgt at mute jer. Så stil endelig spørgsmål, og det gør I ved at bruge chatten. Så for jer, der ikke rigtig har prøvet det før, så bevæg musen, så forneden, så er der en chat. Og der er jo nogen, der er super erfarne, kan jeg se, fordi der er nogen, der har skrevet hej allerede, og hvor I kommer fra. Så spændende. Velkommen til, og jeg skal nok sørge for at holde øje med chatten. Skriv gerne på engelsk, men I kan også stille spørgsmål på dansk, så skal jeg nok sørge for at oversætte dem til Mark. Alright, thank you so much, Mark, for joining us today. We are looking so much forward to hear how the global meeting market is supposed to be in the future.
Thank you so much, Marlene, and a huge thank you to you and Danske KonferenceCentres for inviting myself and IACC to come and share our global research with you all today. And what a wonderful crowd that you have of meeting professionals from throughout Denmark. So I'm really excited to be sharing the research, but I'm equally excited as well to be looking at the comments and the chat that you have, both for me and the research, and also between yourselves. This is every one of these webinars is an opportunity to share ideas with each other. So please feel free to do that. And Marlene, thank you in advance as well for offering to just keep an eye on the chat and help me when we've got something to discuss. Now, we have lots to share with you in terms of research today. So what I'm going to do now is, so that you can see everything really well, is I'll turn off my camera and then you have a nice big screen, and I'll start the presentation, and looking forward to the next 68 minutes and 26 seconds with you all. So of course, I'd like to begin by just asking if everybody can see the screen that I have in front of me. Marlene, could I ask you just to confirm that?
Correct, Mark.
Wonderful, thank you. That's
yes. Now that's a nice picture of you again. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I'm glad that we've got that working. So today we're going to look at the 2020 IACC Meeting Room of the Future report, and I'm excited to be able to do that with you. We're going to break down, as I say, this session into 6 key areas. First of all, I'm going to give you a little bit of background information as it relates to IACC, but only in the context of the research and the type of venues that we have approached, the type of meetings that we focus on as a global association, so that it gives this research some true meaning behind it, because there are totally wide variety of meetings in terms of types and size, and we cover a certain amount there. So I'll give you a little bit of information. Then I'll give you an overview of the Meeting Room of the Future initiative, because it's 6 years old and we've been running annual reports around the world. So
Mark, can I interrupt you, please? People are asking you to start sharing the presentation, please.
Okay. I apologize. I thought I'd done that let me try one more time.
There, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Marlena. Then we will look at fulfilling the meeting objectives, which of course is a really important part of the overall experience. Then we'll dig down into the physical venue characteristics, the culinary trends, and then finally we'll be looking at communication, collaboration and technology, and virtual reality. But just before I do that, because we have so much to be able to cover, I have initiated a poll here. Some of you have started to fulfill that, which is excellent. We have 27 of you that are looking at the poll questions. Do feel free to think about those questions as we run through the session, and we can go back to those at the end. You may form some of the important, some of your opinions around what elements are important as we get towards the end, after you've heard all of the different trends and spoken with each other. But at the moment, I can see that attendee relationship building is really important. I will be touching upon that. And also we can see as well that areas such as technology enhancement as well are important, both in-room and remote attendees. So do carry on, fill out that poll, and we'll refer back to that at different points. So let's take a look, first of all, at who I am, because for many of you, I'm sure, unless you are MPI attendees, or indeed have been to a Danske KonferenceCentres live event where I was in Copenhagen last year and thoroughly enjoyed it, may not know who I am. I've had the absolute privilege of being in hospitality all of my working life, from the little English pub that you see the picture of there, where I grew up as a child and was born into waiting onto tables, the kitchen, the bar, serving guests, and then into hotels, both UK hotels, US hotels, and European hotels like Dolce Hotels and Resort. I've also had the privilege to have a number of years working in and as a meeting professional with both Sundal SOS, Venue Finding Solutions, and Conference Direct. And I make that point because I think it's really important to have that balance between knowing how venues operate and serving customers, but also being a meeting professional, which is a really different role, as you know. And I can come in with a little bit of an equal measure against both. So sometimes when we look and research and share our research, I can be critical of one area or the other and do that with a sense of fairness. There won't be too much criticism from me today, though, because we'll be looking purely at the trends. And then we have the kind of meeting planner survey. We looked at this year venues across 3 continents. Now, the research was delivered in January 2021, right before our world changed. Now, some of you may think, well, that research is not relevant anymore because so much has changed. But others might say that this is a snapshot that was really important because, as we know, trends are built up over many years, in fact, decades. And some of the trends that we saw beforehand, some of the important elements of meetings, yes, they may have gone away and they're no longer important, or new priorities may have come in. But I would challenge you equally to think that some of those trends that we saw before are going to continue and are going to be even more magnified in terms of their importance in the return of meetings. So what did we do? We kept the research pure, but we added a COVID-19 perspective where we felt it was likely to impact the current trends. And at this point, I'll take a moment just to say to all of you that we will share the live video of today, which we're capturing. And also we will share the full slide deck with you. And of course, you can download the full report because we're looking at really at the highlights of what is a 70-page global report. So just as I've touched upon the impact of COVID-19 and all of the negative connotations that we know that exist with that, let me throw up just one alternative thought for you, is that this is going to undoubtedly affect us and we will meet differently, but maybe, just maybe, not all of the changes that we're going to see will be negative. There may be, for instance, as a result, less internal meeting spaces because of the changes that we are already seeing in workspace environments. Large organizations are downsizing in cities, in rural head offices. They are encouraging more home working. And as I've been hearing just in the last few days, more of what we call task gatherings. So rather than having offices exist for certain groups of people will come together in remote locations because of and around a task or a project. And that then becomes an external meeting. So we may well see a greater need for external meetings as a result of those changes to our corporate office spaces and volume. The second reason why there may be hope for meetings, particularly small meetings and meetings where relationship building is important, and I remember and refer back to the poll that you already are starting to rate that highly, we're not meeting in the office anymore. So the need for people to build relationships in external meetings, you may well find as meeting professionals that those needs increase. Of course, that's great for the industry, but they're slightly different meetings with slightly different priorities. So there is hope. I really hope and trust that not only is there that hope, but there is also some really positive change that's taking place and is accelerated as a result of our current situation. So let me tell you a little bit more about IACC Meeting Room of the Future and the association. So we represent the small to mid-sized conference and meetings market. And with that, I mean meetings under generally 100 people, although many of our members, and we have 70 IACC members that are both in Denmark and within Danske KonferenceCentres, 70 of those venues are looking after meetings for 10, 20, 60, 100, maybe slightly more as well, 200, but not the thousands. We're not looking at conventions and very large events. We are focused on small to mid-sized meetings, conferences, and training courses. And as Marlene was telling me before, at the moment, this is the most critical size of meeting to return after COVID-19. Marlene is sharing information that average group sizes are 60 at the moment, 15% higher inquiry and booking levels than this time last year for those smaller events. And I'm sure you're seeing that as meeting planners as well. We brought in your perspectives as meeting professionals also. I mentioned MPI, one of our key global partners, who also have commented and contributed an added perspective to this research. And we continue to work with MPI in Denmark and globally to get your perspective, because that's really important. Then, in all of our research, we turn to the industry experts, those who are experts on dietaries, allergens, technology, meeting room space design, as well, to be able to see what they're seeing into the future and draw that in. And then last but not least, those suppliers that we need alongside the venues to make our events truly great. You'll recognize Microsoft, of course. You may well recognize PSAV, or under its different brands within Europe, they are one of the largest, if not the largest, production and AV and event technology companies on the planet. Marlene, do at any time let me know if any questions come in. I know we haven't gone into the detail yet, but feel free to stop me. So now I'm going to move into fulfilling the meeting objectives, which is hypercritical, and it includes so many elements: the social impact, social responsibility, millennial impact, security, and arguably that will extend more into health and well-being as well. Flexibility, location, accessibility. There are so many elements that play an important part. So let's talk about that one well-known word, experience creation. From the research that we did in 2020, I'm really thrilled and reassured to say to you that the venue operators seem to have fully embraced that it's their role to provide a memorable experience for attendees of meetings, and very, very few feel it's your role as a meeting professional to create that. They realize that they play an important part, both in terms of the environments they create and also the services they provide and the really creative wow factors that are needed. And I'll talk a little bit later. I want you to just hold that memory or that point in your mind for a little while, because there is a reason why that's going to be important for you as meeting organisers moving forward as you address new and other priorities. Because of that need that you have already highlighted in regards to post-COVID-19 meetings and the need to build strong relationships, we fully expect that meetings are likely to embrace richer experiences. When we come together, it will mean more. We might be coming together less than we did before, but we need to squeeze more value out of those coming together. So we're going to have to work really hard to provide that rich experience. And Jessie States, who a number of you may know, who is an incredible educator and leader within the global meeting professional international scene, feels that, you know, to move attendees' mindset and create these strong experiences, it's critical that the venue needs to provide insights and inform you and assist and support you on what the best approach is. They need to be consultants, not order takers. So let's start to take a look at some of the key findings. And one of my favorite sayings of the last year is, these cannot be your parents' meeting. And by that, what I mean is, if we think about the meeting environments our parents existed in today, existed and attended, you know, in the last decade or so, if the meetings we're putting on now could be transported back 15, 20 years and look, you know, and feel the same, we haven't caught up. We meet differently. We need different connections. And I used to attend and organize those meetings of 10 years ago, and even I'm tired of them. So even those generations other than the millennials really enjoy the more immersive and more connecting, rich meetings that we put on. Sustainability was important leading into this pandemic. Critical, some would say. The magnifying glass was on us as an industry, and we were making big, bold moves. Now, as we look at it, the venues and the meeting planners collectively recognize, you know, that practices need to be cost saving or cost neutral, because you are tracking your savings even more, and you will be in the future. So it's really important for us to think about the importance of that, but also, is the venue already sustainable because that's part of their DNA and part of their culture? Or is it that it's something that, to achieve your expectations, the venue may turn around and say, we can do that, but it might cost more? And if that is the case, then maybe you have the wrong venue, if there is another venue that is more willing and embracing it already. The creativity that exists within our meeting room, and importantly, the spaces outside of the meeting room, is critical. It's no longer acceptable to be in rooms that have dull beige walls, boring carpets, no interesting artwork on the walls, no points of interest. You know, creative spaces and creative meeting rooms, and sometimes it only takes one thing to be added to a room to make it a point of interest. I've seen rooms that are pretty normal and pretty atypical, but they've had just a really nice bizarre, interesting coat hanger in there, or something that's drawn your interest. So the physical environment helps. And in creating that experience, we all know the one that triggers all of the senses in our mind. And remember, the more senses that we trigger at any point, the more of a memory we create is, of course, of food and beverage. And that's a key way. We have a section on food and beverage, but it is one of the best ways, one of the easiest ways, and one of the most cost-effective ways of creating that memory for attendees. Even though we're going to have a different backdrop, maybe, to the way that we can deliver some of those food and beverage services in the short to the medium term, if not the longer term. So we asked that question of the venue operators back in January. Are you seeing a trade-off between tight budgets and higher expectations? And what we mean by that is, you know, have we got big plans, but but we struggle to have the finances to support it? And as you can see here, a whopping 66% said yes, budgets are remaining flat while the demand for unique experiences continues to rise. Now, first of all, you may think that I'm saying that within that statement that you as meeting professionals, your budgets need to increase to create a better experience. And that might be true in some instances, but actually, I think you need to have, again, that conversation with yourself and with the venues. You know, it's the venue that we've selected at the price point that we've selected, the most creative and best partner to help us create experiences, because it's not always the case that you have to bring the experience in from outside. If the venue has got incredible experiences already lined up as standard, that by far is both the most economical and the most sustainable way of doing it. One of the other areas in regards to experience enhancing is we asked which of the following elements of a meeting venue do you feel are going to be more important in the future than maybe they are now? Again, look at social responsibility and ethical operations. I find it incredibly reassuring for us that venue operators are seeing that in such high demand. Now, the second point, flexibility of meeting space. It's actually going to be quite important for us, because imagine at the moment when we've got fixed seating in an old style auditorium, the only way we can socially distance at the moment is by sitting in every other seat, and it's awkward to move around. So sometimes flexibility of meeting space and furniture is a good thing, and it's been good for the return to meetings. It's also a negative maybe in that people then do have the freedom to move around in their seats around the room, and it's a little bit harder, but that's when different wayfinding and floor mapping and other measures are put in place. And then of course the food and beverage offers both the style of service and the presentation and that interactive technology ready solution. And many venues again have that built in or have moved into that area. So I'll pause for a moment there. That's the first area where we look at the whole experience. We're now going to move into the next one, which is physical venue characteristics. But just before I do, Marlena, are there any questions or is there any interesting comments on the chat box that are perhaps worth sharing at this point?
You're doing absolutely great. No comments and questions.
Okay.
Yet.
Great. Well, let us move into physical venue characteristics at this point. So here we're looking at the meeting rooms, the need for those venue characteristics to be social animals, sort of encouraging, the networking, the outdoors. Wow, gosh, how important the outdoors are going to be in the next few months for us. And that, you know, how they foster or don't collaboration and design. Sometimes we can be maybe criticized for choosing an environment that is really, you know, pleasing on the eye, really great looking, quirky, but then when it comes down to the acoustics, they're really terrible. So it doesn't aid collaboration, it doesn't aid networking, it doesn't help with socializing because people just can't hear each other. So it's a really clever and interesting and carefully considered balance when you're evaluating venues. So bringing the outdoors in Europe, in Denmark, we have for a long time recognized the value of the outdoors, maybe more so in other parts of the world than in other parts of the world, like the Americas, like Asia, but these examples here, when we look at biophilia, hypnosis or hypothesis and meeting space design, they are becoming more and more common now. We look at the one on the right, this picture was taken before COVID. But if you consider events that are returning today, actually venues and offices are starting to design more of these spaces because of our ability to use them to both socially distance and network in small groups. So we're making those big open spaces more appealing and bringing the outdoors in. Humans crave human nature connection, we know that. COVID-19 is likely to further fuel our design for meeting spaces to be more home-like. We have moved so far away from the corporate office setting because of the last 4 months. And we were seeing that already. The meeting room space to the right here is actually in a 120 bedroom conference center in Eindhoven. And before they remodeled this, using all second-hand repurposed furniture that as part of the circular economy, they were really keen to do that. Before that, that was a typical training room. Now look at it. It's a lot more homely, it's a lot more relaxing, but we can still do business in it. You wouldn't look at that, see a group of people in it that are meeting for a business meeting and say they can't be productive. Absolutely not. So expect to see more of us meeting in these sort of environments. And, as we redesign these spaces, it's really important for us to think, because all of us are now coming back into new meeting environments, bringing in social distancing, using new layouts. As we do it, just a highlight for all of us is, let's not forget also, as we redesign the way we meet, we still need to keep one eye, or both eyes, are on the needs of our attendees with disabilities. One of my favorite words of the moment is create spaces that have that linger effect. And, if you have a meeting and you find that during the breaks, during the lunch, even at the end of the meeting, that everybody disappears and goes straight away, versus the meeting that you had where everybody hung around and had conversations, that's what I call the linger effect. If the spaces in and outside of the meeting room of that venue aren't nice, aren't welcoming, aren't acoustically good, you don't get the linger effect, you don't get the powerful relationship building. And here are just some examples that I can show from around the world. The one on the left and the one in the top right are just open social spaces outside a conference center which has 20 meeting rooms just for people to gather. The one on the right is in outside of Brussels at La Ramée, which is just, again, the hangout space. And if you look through the archway, you can just about see a traditional training room environment. So that's where the meeting's held, and then they hang out outside. But look how much is being invested into these spaces, these third spaces. These informal breakout rooms now are more popular than having the privacy of a separate breakout room. Now we get into, remember I spoke just a few slides ago about the importance of creating experiences through the design of meeting rooms. And all of these are professionally designed meeting room environments. And, at least 3 of them are totally different. A couple in the bottom, arguably different furniture, but the same outcome. but just look at the top left-hand corner. Look at how they've created that meeting environment, which, by the way, the venue tells us makes for a great evening movie setting for the meeting delegates, and particularly for the groups of millennials that are attending now. They do not want to hang out in bars and just drink, have alcohol consumption as their only post-dinner solution. They want to do stuff, and they want to do stuff together. So that room works well in the evening as much as it does in the day. I love the room to the top right. I think it's one of the most powerful statements of the way we want to meet today. And I'm hoping you can all see that, because within that room, it's a circular room. The speaker will be in the center of that room, although they're not stood there at the moment, but they're not at a podium. They're not at one end of the room. And you'll see in the top left and the top right-hand corner, you've got two screens. And equally behind the camera, you'll have another two in the other two corners of the room. So everybody in the circular point has got the ability to see a screen, but just think as well about how close the presenter is to their audience, that connection between attendee and presenter. I love presenting. I was scared a little bit, you've got no protection, nothing to stand behind, but I can tell you that very soon after I did my first or maybe my second one, I was totally at ease, and I loved that environment. So, we have got the ability to respect social distancing more, but create great, inspiring environments. Just a few more to give you a little bit of a flavor of meeting environments. I'll particularly look at the one in the bottom right. This room here takes 200 delegates. Notice how this room, though, is landscape style as opposed to portrait. We ran our own annual conference in this very room 2 years ago in London in the United Kingdom. They've got 6 screens installed that are all ceiling mounted. They have the ability for the different screens to show different content. Some might be showing the social media wall, some the presentation, some the remote speaker with hybrid meetings now as well. Look at the chairs. You might just be able to see the fact that these are not round tables. They are half moon, crescent type tables. So nobody has their back to the wall. All of these spaces that I'm showing you now are dedicated conference and meeting venues that really have invested in their meeting spaces. And within Danske, the 70 venues that are IACC members, or indeed the 400 that we have in 26 countries around the world, all have to have a focus on meetings and have created great meeting spaces. So now I'm going to touch a little bit on the COVID-19 perspective. Again, we're seeing some changes. To the left, we've got a meeting room venue in the United Kingdom, which has had their rooms set out for social distancing. And to the right, we've got a venue. You can see the tower in the background in Toronto, where they've actually changed part of their venue into a studio for hybrid meetings. And we're seeing more and more venues that have the ability to do that as standard. But again, a venue that is focused on meetings will likely have a really strong technology infrastructure, strong technology and knowledgeable IT staff, and will make it easier to support that. We'll be talking a little bit more about that in a minute when we look at hybrid. Culinary beverage trends. Let's look at those, because there are a myriad of different change and evolving trends that we saw leading up to this year. It was one of the fastest moving areas for us. And now, as a result, as we reopen, it's been one of the areas that's had the most scrutiny. Now, 93% of IACC venues around the world operate what I'd call a continuous refreshment break station. So instead of asking you to tell us what time you're breaking for tea, coffee, snacks, it is there whenever you want to graze. Again, not all venues, if a number of you, and I know within this group, we've got pharmaceutical companies, we've got banks, we've got public sector, we've got European organizations in terms of attendees. You're placing meetings around the world. And in some parts of the world, it's still not as it is. I know in Denmark, common practice to have continuous break stations, but it's a really important part for us. And although we've got some restrictions because of COVID-19 around these open buffet formats, and there are measures that are put in place when the health issues dissipate, we expect there to be a return to that highly social environment. It goes without saying, as part of our social responsibility commitment, we have to think about the health and well-being of our attendees and create a careful balance between diets and healthy appetites. Sometimes we were reported on through this research and research in the past, we've seen organizations maybe go too far and attendees complain that they need, they need more food, they need more protein, they need, and so that balance is critical to get right. It's a little bit like weaning children off sugar. You can't just take the sugar away, otherwise it gets very noisy. You've got to gradually sort of change the culture, change the DNA. And then really the importance, and this has been a huge issue for the global meeting professional world up to this year, and we do not expect it to go away, embracing dietary preferences whilst incorporating sustainable practices. When I talk about dietary preferences, I don't mean dietary requirements and allergens. They absolutely need to be catered for. They absolutely need to be delivered robustly, even though there are more allergens today and more allergen-related requirements than we had yesterday, which is a challenge for those venues and meeting professionals that cannot sort of articulate and embrace it. But the preference is really about what you and I like from maybe a losing weight perspective, a dietary perspective. Preferences are what we'd like to have rather than what we need to have. And when we ask for dietary requirements, of course, we get the preferences as well in there. And that's challenging. But venues have said it's important that they embrace them. We can't push back against it. We can't put supplementary prices in there. We have to find a way of managing that. And you can see here a massive 95% of venues said in the past year there's been an increase in the number of requests to accommodate dietary requirements. That was 90% last year. It's been around 90% for the last 3 years running. So to go to 95% shows that this is not going away. We're not seeing any break from this. I'm only touching upon the key points as well, because there's lots of data in this research, and I do really encourage you to go to IACC meetings.com, download the research. It's cost-free for you, and you can digest and use that and share that with those that you are organizing meetings on behalf of, so they can see how meetings are evolving. So the AM and PM refreshment breaks, we talked about that in relation to being continuous. I'm going to talk to you now about it, though, in regards to the sort of overall environments that we're creating. Short-term measures, delivering refreshments to the meeting rooms. Of course, that will be something that will be put in place, or it's already in place. We are at risk as we temporarily change our service styles of bringing more and more single-use plastics in and wrapping food more than we would have done in the past. So do speak to your venues and ask them, are you now consuming more plastic as a result of these measures? Or have you been really smart and introduced other elements like compostable coverings, compostable tea and coffee cups. I've even seen a great example in Copenhagen when I was there last year of the venue where Danske ran the meeting, where they made the coffee cup out of the coffee grinds that we used, which was incredible. In the US, and I appreciate we're not in the US, but US has indicated 10% of adults have a food allergy. these are twice the levels that were thought of previously. And I don't think, although it may not be as high as that, I don't think it's significantly different. Maybe because we as a nation have become used to now having tests for allergens, even when we're not ill, and getting results and finding out that we're intolerant to something more than something else. And, you know, and then starting to react to that, even though it hasn't made us ill. Where I worry and where we really encourage the venues to be stronger, better and more prepared around the world, both within IACC and indeed all venues, is around providing proper training and allergen information. When I talk about that, I'm not talking about allergens in terms of having a policy and having a procedure. All venues have that, and we thankfully don't have many big issues. But what we do have is maybe the ability to train more and give proper credentials and understanding to the venue staff, food and beverage staff, as I hope it's in place through organisations and associations like MPI for meeting professionals. And I've seen great people like Tracy Struckrath from Thrive Meetings, who travels globally to educate meeting professionals and venues. 23% of venues say they don't offer allergen information at the break stations. This is another area, and I'm sharing this information not to be critical of some of those venues out there. Of course, they're our membership, but unless we recognize the areas of weakness that we have, or encourage you as meeting professionals when you're planning your next meeting to ask the venue if that information is there, then we won't improve. So there are definitely areas that we can do more on, even though we've done a great amount. We talked about, under the social responsibility banner as well, the importance of wellness at event. And the meetings outlook by MPI is research of 2,000 meeting professionals. So this is not venues. And again, just the number shows that you're looking to increase the efforts at your events for wellness. So you're looking for these creative ways to bring that in. You equally are telling us that you want more seasonal variation, or more obvious seasonal variation, less foods on the menus that you would see all year round. And of course, more vegetarian and vegan-based plant foods. We've been talking for a little while now in Europe, particularly leading the field, that the amount of protein is reducing and the amount of vegetables and plant-based proteins are increasing, so that almost the meat and the fish has become the side dish, and the great vegetable options have become the main course. And we expect to see more and more of that, because during this lockdown, many of us have actually thought more about our diets at home, are exercising more, are looking after ourselves more. So expect us to go, you know, we're not in this fast-paced, fast-moving sort of business environment, eating fast food the way we used to. You know, well, for some of us anyway, we are eating better, we're taking more care of ourselves. So again, when I talked at the beginning about the impact on this could be positive, there are many positive outcomes that will influence the way our attendees want their food and beverage at meetings. I've covered that a lot now, so I won't go any more into that, but I will just say, if this interests you, this area of managing dietary requirements more effectively and efficiently, again, go to iacmeetings.com. It's a free download. Our guide to managing conference delegate requirements is there for you. And we also have a second one, which is trends in nutrition and delegate well-being, which you can download from our research and surveys section. Marlena, did you have any points to make at this stage, or indeed any observations to share?
No, that's very nice, Mark. I think, I mean, most of it is it's trends we see in Denmark already, of course, also. I have nothing else to comment on that.
Okay, well, let us carry on and keep going through. Give me one moment. There we are. Just hopefully you have a full screen again now. So communication, collaboration, it's massive. It was massive before, and for very different reasons now. This is a critical area that we have all had to pivot and accept. There are many requirements around a meeting related to technologies. They were increasing. We were becoming more technology focused and dependent from a collaboration perspective. But now we've got this huge drive. We're going to see more live streaming, more hybrid events, the need to manage equipment in different ways, sanitize microphones, using browser-based apps on our smartphone as opposed to throwing or passing a microphone around. Of course, we hope they're only going to be short term, but it is going to have an impact. And low touch, or what I call no touch technology, will be popular. I saw one example very recently in the US where the clicker to be able to advance presentations, which often venues find that as you plug in the USB into your laptop, they're now being provided in a sealed and sanitized individual wrapper, so that when it's handed to you and put down, you're the first person to touch it. I've seen other technology where it is where it's sealed as well. It just has a visual sticker on to say you're the first person to touch it after we as a venue have brought it in and sanitized it. One other maybe consideration for you as meeting professionals is the venue that has the equipment built in versus the venue that brings the equipment in and has it delivered just for your meeting. There are some schools of thought which say there is less contamination risk if the equipment is permanently built in, as opposed to having to be wheeled from room to room, AV person to AV person to get it to your meeting. Although I would say that is unproven, and as long as the sanitization is in place for each piece of equipment before you take it on, then you shouldn't be concerned. Venues are absolutely embracing your need to offer the hybrid meeting solution. We saw streaming in the past, don't get me wrong, but now venues know that they need to be a part of that solution for you, particularly for smaller conferences, meetings, or indeed training courses, because you don't have a production company, you can't bring in IT and AV people to your meetings. And I've been really, really encouraged by the way venues have embraced these. And there's a lot of that I can share in regards to that. Think of this in the sense of your venue can offer you both the equipment to go in the meeting room, the staff support in terms of managing the videos to be able to cover that, but then also potentially venue AV teams are skilled to be able to assist with the platform, whether it's Zoom or a different platform that you have. And then also maybe the technology support. If you've got remote attendees, but they're struggling to get in to see your meeting, let them be the point of contact, because you as a meeting professional do not have the time to do it. And like I say, it's really encouraging that many venues have launched and bolstered their AV and IT to be able to offer the hybrid technology. Now, I'm really excited to share with you something that is actually not come to market yet. In fact, it will be coming to market in September, but I would love your feedback in the chat box as to whether you think it sounds like it could be of value. So in our expectation of the way and the stages that your meetings will return, we expect, first of all, that it will be regional, smaller meetings. They will be the first to return. And arguably, from what Marlene has told me, that's happening in Denmark already, which is incredibly encouraging. Then you will get the larger, perhaps national meetings, bringing people together. And then finally, you'll have the multinational, the global meetings. Now, if we take those steps to returning to normality, like we did after SARS, like we did after 9/11, for very different reasons with 9/11, but they were the stages that we took. If we assume that's to be the case with COVID, then we thought there would be this excellent opportunity to create a number of multiple regional meetings that are interconnected, which we call IACC Multipod. So how does it work? Well, it creates, and this example shows you that there are 5 meeting locations. 4 of them have got groups of people. So 4 of them are having, maybe the Danish group, the Swedish group, the UK group, or even in the region of Denmark. Can be 4, can be 40, can be 200 in each of those pods. And then you may have what I call the mothership, where you have some of the main keynote presenters. Equally, it doesn't matter. It could be 5 different regional meetings, and each one have different presenters, or they're going to command and take control of different parts of the agenda. Multipod puts in place a technology solution, and it also puts in place a venue collaboration solution. So we know that with technology, we could connect all of these meetings. We could have the 9 to 10 o'clock session from London, the 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock session from Chicago, etc., etc. And each of the groups can interconnect using collaboration tools like Slido and Glisser and Chime and others. And then working with organizations like PSAV and the venue teams, you can create the camera and technology and production and design to be able to interconnect. So again, I'm trying to just give you as many different examples, but it could be 2 locations coming together. It could be 2 small meetings coming together. But we felt that that could be a way of creating small community relationship building from each of the pods. But then when you bring all the pods together, you don't lose that either national or global feeling of working together on a problem or a solution. Now, I mentioned a number of you are from banks, from pharmaceutical companies. You're doing pretty groundbreaking stuff at the moment in regards to changing your business. So I'm sure getting these groups together as you did in the past globally to change the way you did business was great. But now finding ways to get off Zoom and still create that live face-to-face environment is something that if you're not being faced with that demand today, it could be something that you will be faced with in the future. So we're excited. We'll be launching the concept. The last point of this concept is that with all of the IACC venues, 400 of them worldwide, they will sign a pledge. And that pledge means that they can both provide the technology infrastructure, the collaboration between the venues, so that you as a meeting professional, it's not like you're running, in this case, 5 separate meetings all at the same time, which would give you a headache, right? But you maybe choose one venue to communicate to the other 4 venues on your behalf. So it needs that collaboration between venues when they have no other relationship. They're not part of the same group, but they are part of the same IACC family and offer incredible facilities. A couple of other highlights when we look at communications. Device charging stations are amongst the top 5 essential equipments that was reported in January. However, we have a feeling that when we return to meetings, that COVID-19 may have an impact on that trend, where we prefer more of our own personal charging as opposed to going to shared charging points. And we're absolutely going to embrace more virtual site inspections, where we do not need to travel to evaluate a venue, where we can evaluate it just as effectively, we'll do that. And we'll be coming onto that with virtual reality. And I've got a short video to share with you on just how powerful virtual site inspections have become now. Collaborative technology can be costly investment, and venues are looking to hire that in or even buy that. On the right, you see barcodes, click share, where you can share the screens of your attendees on the main screen. When you're considering hybrid meetings as well, just one word of caution for you is, free webinar platforms like Zoom are often unsupported and they provide lower security features, something that we have a slight concern about as we embrace hybrid technology. Venues also, you may need now other AV within your meeting that you previously didn't even have to think about, like lighting, microphone technology, things that are supporting the filming of your sessions for the remote attendees. And cybersecurity remains both really critical for the next 3 to 5 years, but also a concern. So let's not forget cybersecurity as we do that. But now I'm going to move into virtual technology because it has moved on in great leaps and bounds. And when we consider virtual reality as a way to appraise our meeting venue more effectively, there are two possible positive impacts on this, maybe three. One is, of course, our reduced travel, our reduced need to travel and the costs there. The impact because of that from a sustainability perspective on the planet through reduced travel. The third, though, may well be really critical. If you're not visiting venues face-to-face and you can evaluate them online more effectively in a shorter period of time, you can then reallocate that time to do all of the other things that are now your responsibility. And if we look at the new landscape in terms of this virtual versus augmented reality, Apple glasses, they're not in operation yet, but they will be soon. They will be a game changer, we believe, in this. 54% of venues are either offering virtual reality today or are planning to implement in the next 12 months. So that's encouraging. We're not just talking about this aspirationally, we're talking about this, that it's coming. And 44% of planners are millennials. And if you're a millennial, you absolutely embrace virtual tours. One example we're going to show you a short video now on is a company called All Seated. They've been leading in this part of the world for some time now and have been involved with IACC at our conferences in Europe and in the US, demonstrating, and they're always showing new products and technology. But this takes remote selling to a new level. You can see some of the key features of Connect video conferencing. So think about this as both an immersive VR-based tour of a venue, but you're also coming in as a planning team, maybe your committee or your colleagues with the venue staff, and exploring the areas together and using video conferencing to see each other and to comment on different layouts. And here we go.
Remote selling is now the new norm. All-seated vision allows for your property to be visited anytime, from anywhere, and showcased with unlimited layouts and configurations in real time. Offer virtual tours of your property via a simple link and use the All-Seated Connect to have video conferencing chats inside your space with your clients and vendors. It's like having a face-to-face meeting, except that you'll actually be able to move furniture around and show your space differently to each customer in minutes. Build confidence with your clients and give them a path to booking and planning an event remotely. Virtual tours with your venue's specific capabilities are now a click away, and your clients will love the fact that on-site inspections, vendor meetings, walkthroughs can all be done virtually. Start selling your space remotely with virtual tours. Show off your property with creative layouts and diverse, forward-thinking spaces. This is something you can be doing tomorrow. Don't miss out on the opportunity to continue selling.
So hopefully the music didn't put you off too much there, but again, use the chat box. Let each other know, are you using virtual reality to appraise venues? Do you like it? Don't you like it? Do you like the thought of it? Does it make you shiver? I'd be really keen to hear your thoughts because it really is evolving, and globally, there's a lot being invested in it. One of the last areas is that clients do not have to have the Oculus Rift goggles or the Apple glasses that will come in the future to be able to conduct these. You now can conduct these in 2D and 3D layout. But there are venue groups that have bought the Oculus Rift goggles and they ship them out to you as a client ahead of that meeting. So there is either or. A couple of other areas, digital flip charts. Digital flip charts, two reasons why they're great. One is sustainability, no more wasted use of paper. And the other is, of course, what comes with paper and moving flip chart pads around and being able to, put them up on the walls is, in the short term, from a cleanliness perspective, passing that around, it's more challenging. And then I mentioned to you the social impact and the environmental qualifications as we come to our last poll now, as we close this, where I want to ask you what you now think, having heard these, is the most important. So get ready for that poll to come back up again in a moment. But planners are more likely to consider venues that operate sustainably. Now, I send this message very powerfully to the venues around the world. Tell your meeting professionals what your credentials are. Tell them what you're doing for your local community with food waste, from a diversity perspective, from a mental health and well-being perspective, because it really matters to you and your attendees. 56% of venues still offer, when we look at the sustainability part, offer plastic bottles. And we still have work to do there. We have work to do from a venue perspective, but also from a meeting professional perspective, in my view, to really find alternatives to plastic bottles. Access to that interactive technology is deemed to be of absolute growing importance, and is really critical when we consider that. But now what I'd like to do is offer up the poll once more for you. I've relaunched that, and so we can add. We've got that moving. If we could ask you now, what do you think is important as it relates to the poll, as it relates to the elements of your meeting in 2021? So maybe not this year, but next year, what will you be investing more of your time in? Be really interested in the views and capturing this from a Danish meeting professional perspective. Okay, we're getting some coming in now. Again, still attendee relationship building is featuring pretty high, but look at the remote attendee technology. That's receiving a really high number on there and providing a healthy environment. Now, I'm going to revert back as well to some of the poll that we asked at the beginning, because I don't remember seeing providing a healthy environment as being right up there in the top area. So maybe today I've given you some thought-provoking sort of ideas around that. And as we come back off there, Marlena, I'm going to close this session down and welcome you all back. Tell me, Marlena, do the results surprise you in terms of that remote attendee technology advancement being clear #1 there?
No, it's not a surprise, Mark, because we see in our own surveys, it just has to work out at the venues. When people have a big meeting, they're responsible for it. It has to work, definitely. Yeah. I'm a little surprised that sustainability is not have any higher rates right now. But it's moving, yes, slowly ahead. We can see sometimes when we doing the meeting proposals, people start asking more and more. It has to be sustainable.
And I think that's a really important point, because I deliberately here only allowed people to put one answer there. So it may be that sustainability is really important. But actually what your group here today feel is going to be critical is that technology advancement. Number one is going to be that. But you're right, it doesn't mean that sustainability, social responsibility, you know, and the other areas are not going to be important at all, far from the truth. I think we just got more things that are important, right?
There is a comment, Mark, about the hybrid meeting, saying that I really hope the places can deal with it. At the moment, big problem is venues have a lack of staff and are stressed, and that's important. I think.
It is important, and it's the reason why we felt the IACC venues, which focus on meetings and have excellent staff and support, are in a good position to do it. But then also that we needed to layer more structure around it so that this group of meeting professionals worldwide, feel that they could go for it and embrace it and do it with confidence. So I completely agree. To be an IACC multi-pod venue, you have to have demonstrated you have the infrastructure, the staff, and the attitude.
Exactly.
And that's critical.
Yes, we certainly has to develop in our industry about the techniques.
Yes.
Also, I just put on a question about virtual reality. Will we in Denmark adopt it? You know, save time and cost. And a few questions say yes, as long as it is realistic, the virtual reality, that it shows, how it is in reality.
I think that's an incredibly important point. You have to be honest. You can't show the picture of the room when it was built 10 years ago and it's now not in good shape. I think honesty, integrity, is an important part of this embracing the new way. And I do think that, physical photos as well are important in addition, maybe through the live, if the salesperson is in the room, they have a camera and they're also showing the room is one way. But the augmented reality, when that comes in with Apple glasses, the salesperson at the venue will be able to have those on and walk around. So you're seeing the room as it is today.
Yes.
Great point, though.
All right. Thank you so much, Mark. Any more questions? I'm looking so much forward to come out to our venues and see grass inside. See a lane, actually. So it's going to be interesting.
More of that, more being outdoors. But it's been a pleasure to share with you all the trends. I sincerely hope the next time I join you all again will be in wonderful Denmark in person. I miss it, and I was only there was it February? But yes, wish you all the best. Thank you for pioneering the return, because you are truly in Denmark one of the more, if not the most advanced countries in Europe in terms of having brought small meetings back. And we watch you around the world. We learn from you, and you're helping the world's meetings industry get back on its feet.
Thank you so much, Mark.
My pleasure.
Tak til alle for at deltage i dag. Vi har, som jeg skrev ud tidligere, vi optager mødet, og vi sender det ud til jer. Og så kan I jo gense det, og I er altid velkomne til at skrive til mig, eller til kontoret her, hvis I har spørgsmål, eller vi kan hjælpe jer på nogle måder. Så tak for i dag. Ha' en god dag alle sammen.